Don't let anyone rob you of your imagination, your creativity, or your curiosity. It is your place in the world. It is your life. Go on and do all you can with it. Make it the life that you want to live. These words, spoken by Mae Jemison, the first African-American female in space. Many women strive to do this every day through their career fields of choice. This speech will be pertaining to the history of women in engineering. Firstly, the speech will begin with women in engineering in the 1800s. Then we will move on to post-World War II and the 1960s. And lastly, present-day women in engineering. First off, the 1800s. No colleges in the 1800s allowed women to have careers in engineering. When women were allowed, the men were seated first. Therefore, women didn't get many of the classes that they wanted to choose. There was too much manual labor for women in engineering fields. On average, only one female graduated from the School of Engineering in the 1800s. Men were viewed as superior over women, and women could only go to school for things like botany, chemistry, and astronomy. Things like engineering and physics were much too hard for the woman's mind. According to Amy Bix in Girls Coming to Tech, A History of American Engineering Education for Women, in the 1800s, a lady by the name of Margaret Bryan opened a science and technology school for only women at an attempt to receive equal education. In 1876, Elizabeth Bragg was the first woman to receive a bachelor's degree in engineering. These were huge steps for women. Moving on to post-World War II in the 1960s. Society is beginning to pressure schools into allowing females to receive these degrees of their choice. There are feminist movements starting around this time, and this also contributes highly to these pressures. During these times, there are a lack of men to be engineers because of World War II. The women that are wanting to pursue a degree in engineering jump on this in order to get their dream job and receive further education. A blog post by SWE, Society of Women Engineers, talks about how Margaret Lane, in her book, Women in Engineering, Pioneers and Trailblazers, said that by 1968, the number of women in engineering was 2%, and the number of women in undergrad engineering didn't reach 1% until 1972. Women were put down by schools, and many still underestimated their abilities this far in time. Before starting my third point, I would like to point out my presentational aid. First off, I have an illustration promoting Women's History Month from last month's SWE post, a diagram from the U.S. Census showing the pay gap in engineering, disciplines from 2016, the correlations from women in engineering holding positions of power, and why women do not choose engineering. Current day. In modern day engineering, there are still gender gaps. Only 19% of engineers are women. While this is an increase from previous years, the gap is still quite large. Work and research from schools like MIT are being done in order to figure out how we can get more women into these fields. Organizations such as SWE are opening up, and local schools are having their own smaller organizations in an attempt to help women relate and figure out how to make the women most comfortable. These support systems give women opportunities and could help raise their numbers. There is more awareness for women in engineering. In a SWE podcast, episode 59, Penny Worsing, the president of SWE, interviews Kriya Kitcher, a PepsiCo engineer. Kitcher talks about how to become a successful engineer and how much easier it is for modern day women. She talks about so many more people and how they know about engineering. Much more now than they did before when she was pursuing a degree. In conclusion, from the 1800s to World War II in the 1960s, and the current times today, the history of women in engineering has changed, but there are some overlying aspects. Women are now allowed in STEM fields. Women are now allowed to receive higher education in the U.S., but there are still large differences in the ratio from male to female engineers. Overall, times are still continuing to change, and eventually there is a possibility that women could be equal in all aspects of the career field. But for now, Women will continue to make advancements for their gender, just like Mae Jemison. Thank you.